Hey, this is Craig. If you like this show and you want to support it and you want to keep it free, head on over to everyonelovesguitar.com/support. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/support. If you're a business owner and you want to increase your cash flow, or if you're a label or artist and you want to promote new music, then listen up. For information about advertising on Everyone Loves Guitar, including information on geographically targeted ads, go to everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. That's everyonelovesguitar.com/advertise. If you want to buy or sell a home or investment property and you're here in the Tampa Bay area, in Hillsborough, Pinellas, or Pasco counties, then listen up. West Florida Real Estate is a local residential real estate broker that's helped over 250 Bay Area homeowners buy and sell their properties in the last 4 years alone. If you're looking to sell, you'll want to get their free report, The 7 Biggest Mistakes Homeowners Make When Hiring a Realtor. And if you're looking to buy a property, you definitely want to get your hands on the 21 Most Expensive Mistakes Tampa Home Buyers Make When Buying a Home. Each one of these reports is going to save you time and money. Inside, you'll discover the 7 most important things to consider when hiring a realtor, what to do if you're buying and selling a home at the same time, and the danger of choosing a realtor who agrees with everything you say. To get your hands on these free reports, head on over to westfloridarealestate.com. That's westfloridarealestate.com. Hey everybody, this is Craig Garber. Welcome to Everyone Loves Guitar, and we're with a fellow Craig. We're with Craig Martini. He's a great, interesting bass player out of Cleveland, and we're just talking about how people butcher our name. So I really enjoy saying my name. I'm going to get to say Craig like 100 times today. Anyway, before we get going, I just want to give a quick shout out to Phil Collen. Thanks for hooking Craig and I up, and let's do this. So a little bit about Craig. He started playing bass at age 8. At 12, he was playing at parties and events. I read stuff like that. It always boggles my mind because, like, that's like a pretty good level of maturity to be doing something like that at 12, you know?
I had older brother and peers that were sort of like, come on, don't be afraid of it. Just do it.
That's great. I was like lighting my farts at 12, just to give you a frame of reference. At 14, he was playing bar gigs. At 18, he led a Cleveland local band called Unified Culture. Major production companies caught wind of his skills, and they began inviting him to record on different albums locally with different bands and through different tours. While on tour with Def Leppard's lead guitarist Phil Collen, now, that's not something I get to say every day about somebody I meet. Craig was presented an idea one morning over Starbucks coffee. Phil suggested that Craig hits the studio not only as a lead bassist, but also as a lead vocalist, essentially creating a one-man show. So for the last year, Craig's been tucked inside the studio, experimenting, writing, recording, and finding a way to make this idea come to life, which he's done. So this year in 2019, he's released a solo singles called Whoa, W-H-O-A, and Pain, in parentheses, Here Comes the Rain. And you can hear those both on Spotify, and he's got 2 more coming out shortly. He's toured and recorded with Paul Gilbert, Colin Hay from Men at Work, Alan Parsons. Alan Parsons. I always like. Did you see that Austin Powers? Yeah. I've talked to guys who play with Austin, and other guys, and they were all like, everybody says that.
Yeah. Right. Well, that's it's the most famous thing that people recognize of today.
Right. It's the same thing. I spoke with the guy who tours with Burt Bacharach, the guitar player, and he goes, Burt jokes about it, the Austin Powers gig on stage. He goes, it's a big part of his story. He's also played with Joe Satriani at several G4 shows, and again with Phil Collins. Craig, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Oh, man, thanks for having me.
Hey, what prompted you to start playing bass at such a young age? That is pretty incredible.
Well, I had older brothers, and my oldest of the older brothers, I think when he got to be about in 6th grade, it became cool to play guitar.
Okay.
Like kids at school must have been talking about guitar because he came home with this idea of like wanting to play. And all we had at home was like this, acoustic K guitar that was like 5 strings, laying in. So he's like trying to play, this is crap, I want to play guitar. And so we start searching through, the Sears Wish book. And he's like, finds this thing, oh, look, here's guitars and stuff. And it's like, oh, how cool. And so I'm like, well, I want to be like my older brother. He's playing the guitar. And so I'm like, well, I want to play something too, but I want to play the guitar because my brother's already playing the guitar. And so she's like, well, what about the bass? I guess my grandmother played the the upright bass.
That's wild.
Yeah, and I was like thinking, I'm like an 8-year-old kid, and it's like this. I'm like, I don't know about that idea, but she's like, oh no, it looks like a guitar, And so, anyways, again in the wish book, I find this.
And this is your mom talking with you?
Yeah,
that's
my
really
mom.
Cool.
Yeah. She was like, you can do this, and so I cut out this little picture of the bass guitar, and I kept it sort of and looked at it all the time. And after a while, my parents were kind of both sick and tired of hearing me and my brother. My other brother wanted to play drums.
Okay.
And they're like, but okay, and so they got us these things, and there was like, the Sears catalog, bass and bass amp set, guitar amp,
mm-hmm.
and little drum set. And we got those, and when I first got it, I was like intimidated because I had no idea what to do. I never had no one showed me how to do anything or anything, so it's just
sure.
Out of tune and like, man, these are neat, turning the tuning pegs and stuff, trying to goof around with it. And I didn't get really too serious about it as far as trying to really learn to play well for another like probably year or two. And I would pick it up and just like I didn't know what to do. And my brother knew another guy from school, and we went and saw him play, and I got super inspired. Like, holy crap, that guy could play like songs. Like, this is super awesome. And so then I went home and wanted to really learn to play. And so within the next year or two, that's when I really started practicing a bunch and being able to like play songs and be able to play with, like, go over to that guy and play with him a song. And it, he was a lot older than me. So it was like a really cool feeling. Like one of the first times I felt like acceptable.
So your older brother's basically shepherded you into this.
Absolutely. Yep. And he still plays guitar and is.
I was going to ask you that. Yeah.
Yeah. He still plays. He's a hilarious guy, actually.
That's cool, man.
Yeah. He's a really great guy. He's a tattoo artist, actually. He owns a shop in our hometown here, Chardon, and
but dude, you look like a pretty good customer of his, no?
He's done most of them.
Yeah, man. That's pretty elaborate ink you got there.
Yeah, he's really great at that, and he's a great guitar player. And he has you've probably heard this prank phone call that he did where he called a black metal guitar player and told him that the guy was looking for a guitar player, and he called him and was like, yeah, you're looking for a black metal guitar player, and basically played on the black metal and a black guy thing. And it's a pretty prank of anybody who's been on tour.
Really? I have to, what's the name of that? Is it on YouTube?
Yeah, his name's the original Pranksta.
Okay.
And it's called Metal Joe or Evil Joe the Prank.
Okay, Evil Joe Prank.
Yeah, it's pretty fun.
I've not heard that. Cool.
So anyway, that's him. But he was the first one who really introduced the idea of playing an instrument, and then we just really got into it from there, and just started listening to all sorts of different stuff. And I didn't ever really get any lessons or anything. I got a little cassette tape on like here's how to tune the bass, and that was really the first thing that got me to be able to play it in tune. And then there was like little bass lines in it where it was like snippets out of songs that I actually had never heard before. They were famous songs. I figured out later once I knew what they were, but they were just like these little parts. And that was the first thing I learned. And then I would just start learning songs, just like listening. Going,
but you've never had formal lessons?
No, I never take a single lesson in my life other than
How did you learn theory?
What's that?
How did you learn theory?
Reading books. I got, and I'm not great at it, but that more or less, the theory thing came by sort of learning how these things sound, and then later figuring out that there's names for the reasons why those things do that.
But you had to be pretty disciplined about that. You can't like casually learn theory from a book. You got to be pretty.
No, it's mainly sort of real life application more than anything. Just being in the situation of, whether it's singing a harmony vocal or something like that, and knowing that, it's like a guitar chord, 1-5, that's always there.
Sure.
Minor or major or whatever, it's always there. And so once you learn that sort of stuff, everything to me sort of branched off of that. And it's almost like the math of time, because it's either going this way or it's going this way.
Yeah.
Your music grid goes this way and the time grid goes that way.
Right.
And somehow it sort of just all works together. And I never really academically learned that stuff. I just learned it by knowing it, and then later having to describe it is like, oh, then I have to figure out, what am I doing? Why is it this way?
You probably underselling this, man. I don't think you'd be playing with Paul Gilbert and Phil Collen, all these guys, if you didn't have probably a little. I mean, you're a hell of a bass player, obviously, but I'm sure your foundation is really strong in knowledge base, and
Well, I like to think that I understand like what to do in the situation more than anything else.
Yeah.
Because long time ago, there used to be a program called Rock School.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah, it was awesome. And they went through all these different.
It was on like PBS, wasn't it?
Yes, yeah. Exactly.
I love that show. It was so cool.
Those were my teachers, basically, because on that show, the people that were on the show were great players and great teachers, but they would always have guests on.
Right.
And the best guest I ever saw was Larry Graham, and he changed my outlook and actually shaped my bass playing from this one little 2-minute clip that he talked about, basically the role of what you're doing as a bass player. What are you trying to do? You're trying to keep it simple for the most part. If there's a vocal, you stay out of the way of the vocal and put your bass where it's not in the way of anything until maybe it gets to a bridge and a stretch out part. Then maybe you can play a little bit more stuff and embellish or something like that. But for the most part, keeping it simple and staying out of the way of the vocal, that's number one. And then if the bass line is a complicated thing, then something else has to take up for it and be simple. So either the drums have to then be simple and the guitar has to be simple. And if you're super crazy complicated on the bass, there probably shouldn't be a vocal line. It's just sort of the way that
That's funny, man. That one little snippet. It's really weird, and this is a good sign. I just emailed Larry yesterday to see if he wants to come on my show.
Really?
Yeah, yeah. And usually when this happens,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a good sign that so now you're mentioning Larry Grant. Like, you're the first person to mention Larry Grant, maybe second.
Wow.
But how weird is it that today it happened and yesterday?
How strange and yeah, you're going to talk to him. That's like amazing.
Well, I don't know if I'm going to talk. We'll see. I hope so.
Well, I think you're gonna now.
Yeah, I think so.
That put them more into the universe of things, but
weird.
That thing that has been repeating in my head ever since I was a kid. And every single gig that I've ever been hired on.
Yeah, that's your philosophy
has always been, don't get in the way of who hired you. And that's always the vocalist or the star of the show. And maybe it's a guitar player where I've gotten super fortunate to play with a ton of, instrumental lead guitar players that are basically the vocalist with their guitar. Yeah. And my role is to support them so that they can do whatever it is that they need to do and feel confident that no matter where they play, on the beat, off the beat, whatever the heck they do, when they need to land on a beat, me and the drummer are going to be there.
Yeah.
Because it can't be a worse feeling than being at the front of the stage and just
and your rhythm section's behind you.
They're going noodly, things.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it's like, and so that's always been the mentality, is to support the player that you're there for. And so more than anything, I think that's probably the role that's gotten me, hired more than anything, is to just be the support role. I'm not interested in doing anything but that when I'm hired by anybody. That's my role as a bass player. A lot of times I like to stand back by the drummer and let the stars of the show conduct their show. Until my name's out there.
Right. Well, let me ask you that. Was it weird? Was that a weird thing for you, changing roles, being an artist? That had to be very weird.
It still is, and
I'm sure.
Used to it yet.
Yeah.
Because that's always been the role, is to support and be sort of the observer.
Right.
While you're supporting, because I'm in a position of I'm between the drums and I'm between everything else that's on top of it. And I'm sort of in between it, and I'm feeling the vibe of, whoever's playing guitar or keyboards or horns or whatever it is. I'm feeling their vibe, and I'm feeling the drums vibe, and somewhere in between has to be this glue.
Yeah.
And I have to be very aware of where people are sitting. And sometimes if I feel things a certain way, then I may sit further on the top of the beat to try to say, drummer, these guys are pushing a little bit, and the singer wants to be up, so let's bring it up a little bit, or maybe pull it back a little bit or whatever. And that's it's incredibly powerful as a bass player to be in that position. That's really what for me, the most fun of bass is that what you do, it sort of changes everything.
But
and
you
so
know
that
what?
Bad.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but what's really cool is that you've made this. Like, you're the one who's taken this responsibility. I think a lot of people, you know, the mediocre bass player isn't thinking about any of this stuff you're just saying. He just wants to keep a beat. But you're taking what you're doing to a whole different level, which is why you're playing with Satriani and Paul Gilbert and Phil Collen, because you're saying you're taking, hey, I have this responsibility to sort of manage the non-front end stuff. That's really cool. And in doing so, you know, A, you get to be creative and have an impact on it, and B, you get to feel a sense of responsibility, which, if you like that, and I know you're a driven guy, so you do like that, that's great. Whereas, like, sometimes people think, well, nobody lets me do this. That's bullshit, man. Sometimes there is nobody letting you. You got to just do it.
Right. And you know what? It really depends on your intention of what you're doing, you know, and it depends on your personality. You know, it's like, for me, I've never needed to be like, hey, look at me, or anything like that. But I've always loved to be the guy that people can count on. Yeah. And so support role, it's perfect for me. I like to be there, like, because sometimes in some of the instrumental music, it's mayhem.
Yeah, I would imagine.
Going nuts, and the guitar's going nuts, and someone has to
someone's got to be the voice of musical reason.
Right. But sometimes what you're talking about is like it becomes a everyone wants to play thing.
Right.
And so, like, maybe the bass player will go, well, if everyone's noodling, then I'm going to noodle too. And then the whole thing kind of just gets a little funky, you know, and it starts to get loose. And so I've always been of the mindset of, well, if everyone's going nuts, then I'm going simple. Yeah. Because there's Larry Graham again.
Yeah.
That thought, okay, if everything's going crazy, I've got to find something that I can put down the middle, and that everybody, no matter where they go, can come back home, and that's where I'm sitting. You know,
dude, I hope I get Larry on the show, because I'm going to tell him what an impact. Because people say things all the time, and they never get to hear the you know, the rest of the story, sort of. And I think it'd be cool if I told him what an impact that had on you, how it's governed your career, and that you've had a successful career as a result of that.
You have no idea how cool it would be for me that someone told him that.
I will tell him, for sure.
Having it be you is even more awesome, because now we're getting a chance to talk about it, and just the weird cosmic thing of, you know, with them about it. It's like,
it's really weird.
But you know, it's something that I always thought if I ever got a chance to sit with them, I'd love to say, because it really has. It's been a huge deal to me, those words, and you know, it's served me well, and it's kept me working.
Yes, and that's Well, the thing is, and we'll move forward after this on this topic, but with that sort of a mindset, you're the person people want to handle that, because you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, right.
You're. You know, hey man, it's like, which doctor do you feel safe with? You know, you're the bass player. They feel like, hey man, this shit's under control. I don't have to worry about it. He's got it locked, and he's boom, end of conversation, which is real comforting, I think, that's
absolutely the goal.
Yeah.
100%. You know, it's kind of like, when you're touring, you know, everybody that you want to bring with you, of course they all have to be able to play good. Everyone has to be, and that's just sort of like, at least.
Yeah, it's a given.
And there's a ton of great players in the world that can easily do a lot of these gigs. But can you, like, live on a tour bus with this person? Can you live? I mean, because you're literally living in a really tiny apartment for a few months at a time. And, you know, that's a consideration. You know, when you're taking someone out on the road, first of all, are they automatic and bulletproof as far as the music thing goes? Yeah, of course. And then, you know, when we're busy doing X, Y, or Z, and, you know, the other guys are not busy, and they're going to go out and go grab a this, that, or the other, do they think of the other guys and go, hey, anybody want a this or that, you know, going to grab a coffee or thing like that?
Sure.
You got to be that guy. And, you know, I'm not saying you got to go running around and you know, picking up for everybody.
Pick up people's cleaning or anything like that.
No, but
it's just, it's inclusive of a team of,
yep.
you know, hey, you know, asking someone, do you want a coffee is not really like a difficult, you know.
Right, or even just showing up with it or whatever. Just the fact that I know you're busy, you couldn't get away from, you know, the obligation that you're doing right now. And we had a chance to go walking around over here in the city. So we were able to grab this or that and thought of, you know, whatever. Yeah. And that sort of thing goes a long way when you're, you know, a month and a half into like a European tour or something like that. And maybe you haven't had great provisions on some of it. You've been hungry or something like that, and you're busy. And the other guys that you're on the road with think of you and come back with like this great sandwich or something like that. It's like, you know, and so that's the sort of stuff that besides, you know, playing and handling the job and being that support role, also being support roles, as far as being a cool team player to have around.
Very good, man. Hey, I want to talk about some of the artists you've worked with, and for each of them, if you could talk about how you got the gig and a funny or interesting story. Let's start with Paul Gilbert.
So Paul Gilbert, I met him when I was pretty young. I think I may have been about just maybe 21. My friends, one of the guys was remember I was telling you earlier on, who was like this guitar player who I saw play and was like, oh my God, he can actually play songs.
Right.
His name's Mike Zuder. And he could play Eddie Van Halen stuff and all that. So anyways, he had this band and they had like, I was always really good friends with them, but it was like their music was more like pop, like the Beatles. Mm-hmm. And like, I was more into like Metallica and stuff like that. So we never really were in the same band at the time together, but I always looked up to them. They could play anything. And they did this demo and it had like, I think like 6 songs on it. And they were all like these Beatles harmony, like awesome, like pop rock songs recorded on like a Tascam 8-track thing. And so they were like, we're going to go to NAMM, you know, and at the time, our mutual thing that we loved was Racer X.
Okay.
To listen to that shit because we would be like, how?
That's weird that they would listen to Racer X, but not.
Yeah, but they listened to all kinds of stuff. They were like but they were more into pop music, but at the same time, they were both guitar player dudes, and they were just like crazy into like the extreme playing of a guitar, and like so. At the time, it was like Racer X. Who the hell plays anything like that? These guys are like, and so we would listen to that. So, anyways, they took this cassette of their music, and they went to NAMM. And we live in Cleveland, so it was a big trip for them. They went out
to L.A. NAMM.
Yeah.
Oh crap.
Yeah, and they're walking around NAMM, and lo and behold, Paul Gilbert was at like a booth that maybe it was Ibanez or I'm not even sure what it was, Laney or something. And they walked up to him and talked to him like, hey, man, you know, we really love your stuff, blah, blah, this and that. And like, I know it's kind of far-fetched, but here's our cassette. Maybe you listen to it. And they had their phone number on it. Well, he actually listened to it, and he was like, oh, my God, he loved it. He thought it was great. It was like, because he was really into the Beatles and like all the harmonies and stuff like that were on it. It was really pretty well done for the age of these guys. And so he called them after they had been home for a little while. And they're like, no way, like Paul Gilbert actually called. Like, he likes our music. And so at the time, he was pretty famous with Mr. Big by then. And so they were really big in Japan. And so he had a little bit of pull. And so he said, hey, you know, to his label, he's like, I like this band that these guys, they gave me this cassette, blah, blah, blah. And the label was JVC. And so...
are they around anymore even? Not as a label, but even as a company.
Yeah, I have no idea.
TVs. I used to buy JVC TVs. I don't even know if they're around anymore.
Yeah. So Victor, JVC Victor. Yeah.
Japanese JVC Victor. Yeah.
So, but they liked it, and they were like, all right, cool. So why don't we do a record with them? But Paul Gilbert, you're the producer and the engineer and the studio and like everything. So Paul had this studio at his house when he lived in Las Vegas. And, so that's what happened. He called up and was like, hey, got this deal for you guys with, you know, JVC. You have to come out here for a month and we'll record in my studio. And when it's done and produced and everything like that, then it'll come out on JVC. So the guys were all excited. Yeah, they're going to do it. And
where do they? Odd question, but I don't know. So I'm curious. Where do they sleep in a situation like that? Are they provided places, or do they got to like?
They had an apartment.
JVC would provide that for them.
Yeah, they provided that. And so 2 days before they were ready to go out there to go do this recording, their bass player was like, "I'm not going." And so they're like, "You're not going?" And he's like, "Yeah, I can't. This, that, the obligations. I'm not really sure what it was." So they're like panicked because now they've got this deal. They're going to go record their music, and their bass player just not going. So they called me, and they're like, "What are you doing for like the next 3 or 4 weeks?" I'm like, "I don't know, working at the ski place, or And so they're like, "Hey, can you come out?" So I'm like, "Yeah, like absolutely." And so that was my introduction to Paul, was going out there and recording bass on this thing. But many, many years later is when I actually played with Paul, because Mike Zuter, who was the guitar player in that band, became Paul's bass player for a while. While he was playing with Paul, he also became he started working for the Blue Man Group in Vegas, and so Paul had this like 58 city tour craziness that Mike could not get out of a Blue Man, because he's like, if you leave for that long, you quit.
Yeah.
So he told Paul that, and Paul's like, "Well, what can you do?" And so Mike recommended that I could do it, and Paul's like, "That pop bass player guy, I don't know about that," And so I had to go and audition. I went to Paul's house, and I thought, oh, we'll crank it up with the band. He gave me these songs to learn. They were all ridiculously hard. And I thought, we'll crank it up with the band, and, it'll be cool. No, not just like you. That. Me and Paul, and amps with this big.
Wow.
Just this close.
You can't get lost.
Yeah, no, yeah. It was cool, though, because I had practiced it a ton. And I only really had like 7 days, though, because it was like the tour was coming up, and it was like, here's these songs, learn them, and come out to California. At the time I was living in Vegas, so it was easy. We just drove out and went there, and I was nervous as hell because I thought we were going to do like a rehearsal, and it was like, no, and I'm like sitting across from him like, oh crap. But I put the work in, and I was able to play. We went through the songs real quick, and he was like, all right, cool, let's go to dinner. And I was like, okay, that either means I did good enough and I'm good, or he's like, this guy sucks, and we're just going to go to dinner and forget about it.
People don't do that when they suck. It's just like, hey, man. It's like, hey, man, let's go hang out. If you don't make it, it's not like, hey, let's go to dinner. You didn't get the gig, but let's go to that. I don't think that happens. That's just like not natural.
Well, yeah, I found out later that probably doesn't happen. But at the time, I didn't have any idea.
Yeah. Well, because you don't know, but.
I knew him for, we were at his house recording a whole record and stuff. So I knew him like as a friend too. So I figured.
Oh, right. You thought there was some carryover.
Yeah, if I didn't do good, it would be like he would feel bad to tell me you suck. Just be like, oh, we'll just go to dinner, call you next time.
Hey man, you didn't get the gig, but dinner's on me.
Right? Thanks for driving out. Whatever. Consolation prize. But no, it worked out, and I ended up going out and touring with him. So I ended up getting.
That's great.
Getting a gig that way. So it was a long roundabout because like I said, we started out I knew him just for the recording end of it.
That's very cool. And you played with them quite a bit over the years.
Yeah, a couple tours, and I did all the bass on Fuzz Universe, and then there's like some live shows on Vibrato that we recorded. We did Roundabout and a couple of other songs, and that Roundabout recording is one of my proudest moments of.
Is it the song Yes? The Yes song. Yeah. Okay. And that bass line is featured so heavily in that song.
It's so fun to do, and like the way that it was done, we didn't have keyboards, so we had Paul and Tony Spinner, who was a singer and guitar player in Toto for quite a while, came out on that tour, and they did all the keyboard stuff on guitar. And so Paul's doing all those arpeggios, and he's like singing, like he's using this loop pedal. And he like play one part of it, and then he would go to the next part, and so like all this crazy stuff. And so the recording's like amazing, and it's just a live board feed, and that's on one of the on the Vibrato record. And so that is, I'm really proud of that thing, just because it's Chris Squire line, which I did 100% my best to pay homage to perfectly. I can't tell you how many times I listened to that thing and try to get every little nuance of notes that he played.
Sure.
And Chris Squire played with a pick. So it's got this bouncy thing to it. And I don't play with a pick that well. So I had to figure out sort of.
Oh, wow. That's a dramatic difference.
Yeah. And so, well, I mean, there's ways of doing it. And so when you listen to it, it translated really well. So yeah, I got to do quite a bit of stuff with Paul. He's been a really great, sort of teacher to me. And when you talk about, never having any lessons, that's where my lessons really began, as far as because on the first tour I did with them and on the other ones, he always did like a VIP thing where he would, you would get like 6 or 8 guitar players that would pay this extra money, that get this pass, that would be able to come to sound check and be able to go do the rig rundown and different stuff like that and sort of hang out. And then for 1 hour, he would do sort of like a circle with these guys, Paul being the ringleader, and he would go through, and they would all have their guitars. It would be a 1 hour sort of lesson. And the way that he did it was awesome. He would just try to figure out what everybody's level of playing was right off the bat. And so he'd go, okay, we're going to do this thing where we sort of volley it around. We're going to do it in A. And so I want everybody sitting in the circle to just sort of stomp their feet right now at this level, like do, right? They're all just, and so now everybody's stomping their feet. He's like, okay, so now we got this. And then Paul's like, I'll start, and we're going to do it in A. And that's the next guy's turn. And then you see what they do. And so he would go around, and it would always be great because I would listen to the first round, and always 3 out of if there were 6, 3 would always go like, watch this, I can play super fast.
I'm going to show you, Paul Gilbert.
Right, and by the time the beat came around, they're not even close to like on any sort of beats or anything like that, and the whole thing sort of just discombobulated, and then everybody sort of gets it back together, and then somebody will play. And so that was the thing that I would notice. That would be the first thing that would happen. And then Paul would talk for a little while, and then because he would watched everybody's techniques. Now, what he would talk about then are different things to make your playing better based on the people that were sitting around and what he heard them do. So say if the first guy in line had like a problem with his vibrato, Paul would talk about, okay, when you're playing some vibrato, you might want to, you think about this as, doing it in either a slower fashion or like, and then he would play an example of something with vibrato or something like that. Then the next person, he wouldn't go individually to sort of single anyone out, but he would go on the topics of what he heard happening. And I don't know if he even did that subconsciously or if it was an intentional thing that he just didn't want to single someone out and say, you just did this like this and it wasn't good and here's why. But instead he would say, like, if I was going to approach something really fast for this A jam that we're going doom, 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 I would find where the downbeats are so that when I went really fast, I would always hook up on the downbeats. So if I went, then it would be like, right? Instead of just wank really super fast over the top and then end wherever and cross your fingers and hope that it lands on a beat, because that's what makes it sound messy. And so instead of, saying don't go super fast and, lose your time, he would say, if I was going to play something really fast, I would do it like this.
So these are like very practical little inside strategies,
and I
inside secrets
every time, and I would listen to him sort of take apart everything that I had just heard happening, and it was like, to me, it was like taking like a microscope and like you're far away and you just get closer and closer and you watch pieces sort of get farther and farther apart. That's Paul's ability to sort of take someone's technique apart just by listening to him play one single time. They go, oh, you would. You should do this and play this. And so within the hour, by the time the end of the hour came and it was time to go back around the circle and everybody play, everyone played a sensible solo that you could put up on a stage and go, that guy played pretty good to their ability. So if someone doesn't have all these really fast chops, he would say, okay, play less notes, but make the notes mean a lot more. And like maybe just, it's where you put the picking, in the note or something like that. Just something that makes their technique sound a little bit more together. And then if somebody plays fast, you maybe get them to slow that down and think about where the downbeats are and stuff, where they're actually playing these notes and what's actually hitting. And so when you'd hear them come back around, each one of them would still have that, whatever their tendency was, their technique or whatever, but it would be honed in to the point where you could go, that's playing. That's actually something that you could use in a song. And by listening to that so many times over and over, through all the touring and stuff and listening to these things, that's where I got a lot of my like lessons as far as like how to figure out what I need to fix. Like when I'm thinking about why am I struggling with this? Then it's like, I would think of how Paul would just go, okay, what actually is happening? Why,
so you learned how to break stuff down.
Yeah. Break it down, slow it down, pull it apart, figure it all out.
That's really great.
Because when you do that, when you put it all back together and it's perfect, all of a sudden you don't have to work on how fast you play it,
right?
Because speed will be there because your technique is right and you're able to actually not just have this spaz out thing that trying to play super fast notes.
That's really cool, man. That's an unexpected benefit. I'm sure you weren't expecting to get that.
No. And you know what? Anytime I'm with Paul, anytime I've ever played with Paul, I always go away with something I didn't know before. He's that guy. He's just always such a musical guy and such a thinker and a super technical, amazing player, but super open-minded to like blues and like all the like cool stuff that's not just super fast acrobat stuff. So he's got a lot of depth to him and just being, so he's been a great influence on me for sure.
Talk about Phil. How'd you get connected with Phil? And you went out also and toured. You were like the backup bass player with Def Leppard. So talk about that as well.
Okay. Yeah. So Phil, that was a connection between Joe Satriani from
when you did G3?
G4.
G4. Sorry. Yeah.
So G4 was a camp thing, and I did a couple of them for Joe. And one of the last one that I did for him was Paul Gilbert, Warren D. Martini, Phil Collen, and of course Joe. But I didn't have to play with Joe on that one. That was Stu Ham played with Joe.
Yeah. I had him on this show a long time
so
ago.
I'm used to, I've done a lot with Paul already, so that was a big deal. And then I played with Warren and I played with Phil. Well, Phil and I right away our playing, we got along like pretty well. It was
musically,
like it was like a vibe right away. That was surprising because, who knows? It's like he playing in like the world's biggest rock band, and I, I'm playing in like all these different instrumental things. It's like, who knows, the two worlds come together and we play in this way that's like, wow, this is really fun to play. But a lot of what Phil does technique wise is sort of the same that I do on bass, as far as like, well, Phil uses a metal pick and he uses big
I didn't know that.
strings. Yeah. And so his sound is very bright and very like, it's aggressive sounding. And I'm the same way. I don't play with a pick, but I play really hard with my right hand, and I use stainless steel strings, and I try to get the brightest tone that I can get so that I'm in control of when I want that to come out. I don't want to be playing and working super hard to try to get that tone to come out. I want that to exist, and then I control it, and when I want that to come out, it's there. And so he sort of sets all of his stuff up the same way as me, and we play kind of the same way. It was interesting. So it was like right away got along playing. So when the G3 thing came up and he needed a bass player to go out and do that, that's how I did that whole tour. It was 38 cities with that. And then when we got home from that, Def Leppard had the big long tour with Journey, and Sav's mom was, she's older and not feeling well, and so there were some issues with possibly him missing a show here or there. So
he's talking about, just so people, Rick Savage is what we're talking about, the bass player.
Bass player. So he, it was like it's a long tour, and his mom's old and sort of ill and stuff, and he was really concerned with being able to be there for her if she needed. So Phil called me and said, "Hey, can you ready up and sort of just be ready to back up in case this comes up?" And sure. So I was ready for them the whole time. I never had to play. Everything was good. His mom was healthy this time, and everything went well. But
you toured with the band.
Well, I went out. I flown to a few of their, different locations. It was on days where it's like we're not sure, so fly out and hang out. And our my wife and I's honeymoon actually was a Def Leppard honeymoon. We were married on October 1st, and October 3rd they were like, "Hey, can you come out? You know, the last 3 days of the tour, we're not sure what's going on." And okay, sure, no problem. So we went out there, and I was like, "No, everything's cool. You know, we're going to be able to do the shows as planned, but we would like for you to stay." And so they took care of all of our, you know,
That's
everything.
cool, man.
They were like, "Good news is you just get a free honeymoon and get to hang out." And it's like,
wait a minute,
fine.
it wasn't like in Shamokin, Pennsylvania or anything, was it?
No.
I don't know how good news is.
How do you know about Shamokin, Pennsylvania?
Because this is really funny, man. When I graduated college, man, this is really fun. I was a CPA, and I had an audit client out in fucking Shamokin.
Oh my God.
One thing I remember, so I'm from the Bronx, so I'm out in Shamokin, Pennsylvania. The two things I remember: one, I ate frog's legs. I never had that before. And other thing is, I'm an animal guy. I really love animals and pets. And so I'm, you know, in my suit and tie, and I walk out, and I see this dog. I'm like, oh my God, there's a dog here. I've got to rescue it. I've got to get it to its home. And this was like on a weekend when I was working. And so I'm like little baby detective. I like see the tag, and I'm like, let me call the local Shamokin pound.
Yeah.
Right. So I called him and said, hey, and I'm thinking, man, I'm doing a really good thing. And I'm calling him like, hey, I found this dog. I've got to return it to its owner. Right. And so they say, okay, you know, here's the address, go return it, you know, whatever you want. So I get there, and it was very rural, as you know, if you know Shamokin, right? And I'm in my suit and tie, and I show up there and say, hello, you know, I think it was a guy. Hey, I found your dog. And the dog was cut. Looks like a rabbit maybe had, you know, got into it with a rabbit or something. And I said, I found your dog, man. And I'm thinking, wow, they're going to be so happy, because like if somebody found my dog running around the Bronx, I'd be like, oh my God, you know, can I get you a cup of coffee? Come in, you know, thank you so much. You know, tell me your life story. I want, you know, how can I do something for you? And so he goes, he takes the dog, and I give him the dog, and the dog like sort of goes into the house, and he kicks it out of the house. He goes, get out of here. Don't you come in here.
Oh my.
It was like an outdoor dog. That's like country people. You know, that dog is.
Right, but you're like,
right. And I'm like, what?
This?
You know, man, I'm like your hero, no? And I guess not. So I learned that that's just not how people, you know, animals mean different things to different people in different places, parts of the world, man. Yes, Shamokin, PA.
Wow, it's just not a place you hear that often.
Yeah, because that's like a Midwest kind of thing. It's probably, you know, not really far from Cleveland.
No, it's a couple-hour drive.
Yeah.
I remember playing a show there. It was really funny. It was like we showed up. It was sort of in the middle of the night because, you know, we'd driven there and wanted to get a hotel and stuff. And we stopped at like the local convenience store, and they were just like, I think you guys must be with the band tomorrow. And I'm like, oh man.
Well, it's like the kids who are hang out, you know, the set, whatever the supermarket was, that's where all the high school kids hung out in the parking lot. It was really funny.
Oh,
it was just like totally different from what I was used to. So, but that's not where your honeymoon was. It wasn't a place.
No.
We
were out. It was like Sacramento and LA.
Oh, very cool.
It was great. It was super awesome.
Very
super
cool,
good.
man. Long story short.
We got to see the shows and hang and stuff like that. So
Very
yeah,
cool,
all
man.
good. All super cool.
And so you've done a lot of work with Phil.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we just did, it was maybe a couple weeks ago, I was out in California at the Fender Guitar Company.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that's right. I saw you on Facebook. You were
it was super cool. We did 4 shows, you know, for all the employees and everybody that works at Fender and the, you know, offices and everything that was there. And they did this, they made a room dedicated to Phil.
Yeah, right. Well, they've sold enough Jackson guitars.
Right? Yeah.
Enough Phil
and plus
PC
this
Jackson.
Great live performance room that, like, you know, anybody can come that's a Fender, you know, endorsee, and they come in and they play there. And
that's cool, man.
And stuff. So yeah, we did that. It was 4 shows in one day and hung out for a couple days, and then, you know, we always jam. You know, the cool thing was we got to rehearse all the days up to it, and then the final day was our gigs, so we got to jam the whole time.
Very cool, man.
It's pretty awesome. Yeah, so they're just getting ready to embark on a
European tour, I think, right? Yeah. Very cool, man.
Yeah.
When Phil first approached you and suggested that you do your frontman thing, what was your immediate gut reaction? How are you feeling about that? And then has that changed? And if so, how?
Well, I guess at first I was a little bit shocked, like, sing like in front. Like I've been in cover bands forever, and I sing the occasional song, I never had to like be the lead singer of anything. And so having a suggestion from someone like Phil to do that was, first of all, carried weight. It's like, okay.
You can't really blow that off. Say no.
Yeah, no, that's okay. And, so the idea of it was like, okay, well, how do I do that? And he sort of explained it in a way of like, he would say the name Ed Sheeran would come up. And I said, okay, I know who Ed Sheeran is. And I kind of understood. So I started to watch a little bit more of like kind of how he puts his stuff together, and he goes, okay, so that was Phil's thing. It was like, and it really wasn't just one morning. It was sort of every day of that tour. We would have Starbucks and talk about like, how do I do this? And so I would watch a video and come back and say, well, I saw this about sort of the way that Ed's doing these things. And okay, goes, so what you have to do is, you do this basically, but you have to do it with your bass. So you have to figure out a way to make it still sound like music, with a 4-string bass, and still be something that someone wants to listen to, and still be songs, but then at the same time, it's like this crazy bass stuff that is being done. So the idea of it was sort of not foreign as far as like using a looper and like writing a bass part and like sort of soloing over the top of it and doing things, but that's as far as I ever really took that idea, just because I didn't really think, I'm going to go be a singer. I'm going to go, I just always background singing and doing stuff like that. But Phil's like, you really should concentrate on singing and doing this, because then, sort of sky's the limit as far as your songwriting goes. You don't just have to write these instrumental like pieces. You're writing like real songs and stuff. And so that was really intriguing to me. And the more I thought about it, the more excited I got about it. And I kind of couldn't wait to get home from tour and figure out how to do it. And the way that I sort of started it is Phil gave me a couple of like cover song suggestions, like take these songs and do them in this way, where you take all the chords and everything that's there and figure out a way to do it on the bass and turn these songs into what they sound like, but then do your vocal over the top of it and figure out.
So you get in the habit of the mechanics.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. That made a lot of sense, actually.
And also, I think partly was to see what is this going to sound like? Because as much as it was an idea, it's like it's also an experimental idea on his end. It was like, this, can you even really do this with bass? Is it going to be weird sounding or not?
Well, plus it's going to give you some confidence. It would seem like pretty damn hard to just go out and start writing songs with no frame of reference, just from like, how the hell? Yeah.
Right. So I did a couple of these tunes and sent them off, and Phil was like, it's great. Just do that now. Just start figuring out, how do you write something that, write whatever you want, however you want to write it. And so my idea was, it's bass. So you always have the ability to make people dance and move. And so that's always been the most powerful thing to me about music, besides like, lyrically, yes, once I get sort of into what the song sounds like, then I'll start to understand what the lyrics mean to it. But I've never been someone to listen to a song and go, oh, I like the lyrics. Now let me understand this tune. It's always been like, something has to move me, like sort of physically, musically.
You got to have a groove, some sort of emotional groove connected. Yeah.
Yep. Then whatever the vocal line melody thing has to hit somewhere too. And so between those things, that's what I started trying to figure out. Like, all right, so write stuff that's got dance groove oriented beats to it, so that it will connect people that way. And then the idea of what to play over the top of it has to be simple, but like sort of incredibly cool at the same time. And then the vocal lines, because a lot of that stuff, a lot of pop music's really simple. There's not a lot of instruments going on. It's a lot of like drum loops and stuff with selective instruments here and there. So if I just take and change the sound of my bass and make a selective instrument here and put that in part of the loop, and then I change the sound of it again, and now I've got just enough music to make the music, and then my
Right.
vocal line is supposed to make the, you know, sort of the connection. And so that's how I thought of it. And so far that's been the formula, was to just try to make something that you would like to listen to, whether there was vocals in it or not. And then have, like, you know, when I start putting the stuff together, I never come up with words first, ever.
That's
It's always
you
just
come up with melodies.
no, yeah, and you start saying random things that don't even make any sense, gibberish, really, just that vowel sounds and stuff that you can, you know, sort of put the melody line through, and who cares what the words are, and
Right.
come back and listen and go, oh, that kind of sounds like this word, and then it gives you an idea of, you know, so as soon as I have like an idea for like a chorus or like a line of a verse that puts me in a direction of what lyrically I'm going to write about, then it's easy. Then I just start thinking of different things and write them out randomly, and then figure out how to make it work in those melodies.
Had you ever written songs before?
Oh yeah, all my life.
You've always okay. Had you ever written vocals with songs?
Nope. And that
that's a big leap of faith, man.
Yep. And so the way that I kind of did it was, I've always been into like soloing on bass. So it's basically like a lyrical thing, and like the more you listen to horn players soloing, that's more of what you should do on a bass. Like I love soloing bass players, but they're not who I listen to as far as like what I would like to solo like.
Sure.
I'd much rather listen to someone on a horn playing, because they're doing the same monophonic ideas, single note things. They're doing it with the horn, and it's different, and it comes from a different spot. And so that's where I would always try to think that way as far as like what I would do solo. And so when it came to time to write vocals, I would just think, if I had my bass in my hand, what would I play? And I just start to sing it with my mouth instead of doing it with there. And the interesting thing is that it started to open up more melodic choices for me when I play bass now, because I got used to doing all this vocal stuff, and like and I think, well, I'm soloing and I'm going vocally in my head, and I'm like, I would never sing that note that I'm about to play, because I know the interval, and I'm like, and I will avoid something that probably wasn't as cool as something that I now am going to play, because I have this vocal thing going on in my head, and it sort of changed the way that I think of stuff. So I always had the idea of a melody and writing songs, but as far as like figuring out a way to disconnect myself from the lyrics was the hardest thing, because I always felt like I write out something and it sounds like I'm just telling you something about myself, and I don't really want to do that. And it's just
but there's only so many, like Bob Dylan, there's only so many guys that are like lyricists like that in reality.
Yeah, I get it, but like, you know, when you're the guy who's standing there delivering it, it's, how do I deliver something that's gibberish to me, or something that I don't, you know, or something that I don't know. It's just like, it always felt like it was too much, like just too much information. Like when I would write something, it just seemed like it came like too easy to just say these things. And I don't want it to be where, here's my story and you've heard it and that's what I want you to hear. Basically, when I want it to be like, you listen to it, relate to the story, somehow relate to something in your own life. And then the song becomes sort of your song through the experiences that you had, that you can sort of relate to the lyrics that are in it. And so the way I try to write the lyrics now is that it's in a way that you can interpret it to your own story, instead of you listening to my own story and telling you exactly what this is about.
But still, you're being new at this. You're gonna, you know, your curve. I would imagine the next, you know, a year or two of the songs you write could change dramatically.
It does every single
because of the newness of it.
Evolving, you know, time,
which is great.
It is. It's cool. It's sort of like a little frightening though, because I don't know
what the reaction's going to be. Yeah,
like
you have no frame of reference.
Putting it out and seeing what happens with it, but for sure, with everything that I've written so far, and I've played all my stuff for, you know, the local friends and stuff and people and Phil and everything, and it's like the consensus is always, it always sounds like you, and it's like, well, that's good.
Yeah.
It's like we can always tell, and so there's some of the genres and like sort of the style of what I'm doing sort of is different through all of it, but it always has the same consistent. It's bass driven, it's groove driven, and it's my voice. So it's always sounds like me. It's just how creative did I get with the writing on them? And as I do more and more of it, I'm realizing that there's parameters, but there's not. Like if I'm going to do a song in my looper, if I only have my one looper, it's 3 loops. So that means there's 3 parts in the song.
Right.
Or what I'll do sometimes is I'll write 2 loops, and then I'll leave 1 loop with just the drum beat, so that I can then have 2 parts. If I just go to that drum beat and play and sing the 3rd part, and then I go to the other parts, and then I go back to that drum beat, and then there's a 4th part, I play and sing it differently and do that. So there's like a maximum of 4 parts that I can kind of do with 1 looper. So
that's a lot of shit to manage too, man.
Yeah, think about that as I'm writing, though.
Right,
because
right.
How am I going to perform this thing and make it to where you're not bored by the time I put it together?
Can you use like 2 kind of loopers, or is there? I'm sure there's a machine where you can put like 40 tracks on there.
Well,
no?
That's the thing. I can take the loop station that I use and get another one and hook it together, and then I have more loops, and that'll be sort of the next thing. But at the same time, you have to keep in mind, how long is someone going to watch you build these loops? Because if they say it's an 8-bar loop,
right,
right, and so every loop will be then 8 bars. So
right.
Every time you change something, you've got to write a new 8-bar loop. And so if you've got 4 parts in your song,
so that's 4 minutes, and then another minute to get it to wrap around. So that's like almost a 10-minute. Yeah, that's a lot of pressure to put on.
You've gone to the bar, you've gone to the bathroom, you're over.
You know what? Do you know who Johnny A is?
Yes.
Johnny A does this.
Yeah.
He has a solo show, and what happened was with him, I believe his voice gave out quite some time ago.
Oh, okay.
And maybe check out what he's doing. And I want, one of the reasons I was excited about having you on is I think people need to take chances like this more, and something will come out of it, could come out of it. You have a solo career.
Right.
Something else could come out of it that you don't know right now.
Right.
It's brewing in the process. You could be called in to produce a record because now you're producing records for yourself, essentially.
There's so many branches of it. Yeah, absolutely. And so that's absolutely right, because had I not, let's say I didn't go and do the tour with Phil, and I just continued on with what I was doing. Basically what I've always done is just play bass for people and sang the background vocals, and when I'm at home, play in cover bands and just sort of make my way. And then always writing songs, though, like writing, I wanted to put out an instrumental bass record, and that was sort of what got us to this topic. Was the one morning when Phil was like, "So what are you going to do when we get done with this tour?" And at the time, I was like, really sort of inspired to do finish my solo bass record, because we're listening to Satriani. He's playing, and we're in front of these theaters of people, and it's like, holy shit, man, people love this stuff. So maybe I could do it. And so I told him, kind of that, and he's like, well, the only thing is that you sing really well, and so you should do that and that. So you sing, but still do the bass thing on top of it, to where you then appeal to a huge section of the world instead of just people who play an instrument or something like that. Because most people, let's face it, are not going to listen to a solo bass instrumental record.
Be it'd be tough. Right. It'd be tough.
Probably ever. Maybe once.
Right. It's not going to be on the rotation.
It's not. You got to be honest with yourself with it.
No, it's not. It's just not that kind of music.
No. And so if you're into jazz, that's usually what that sort of bass lends itself to, being in that sort of genre of music. So now you're in a niche of a niche.
Right.
And it's just it just keeps getting smaller and smaller, and your audience is just tiny. And so by the time, when I sort of explain that, it feels use your voice, because then people will then come to your bass playing because they like your songs.
Right. People will do that. Yeah, for sure, man.
It's a different thing.
First of all, congratulations, man. I really give you a lot of credit for putting this thing forward, because it took some balls. Yeah, man. And it sounds great. I listened to it. The 2 tracks that came out, they sound great. And it was really cool to watch on video how you constructed that. Which was, right. Yeah, because it's difficult, man. I was like, it's not.
It is. You don't got a lot of chances.
Yes, that's
you
right.
Gotta get it right.
Well, that's another thing. If you screw up the loop, then you got to go back, and now so it's another couple of minutes that you got to add to the thing. So you
can't do it.
Is there a way you can come on with the stuff already pre-done?
There's a couple songs that I have that are so involved as far as like how many parts there are that I just have to play it to a track because it literally takes so long to build all the parts on it. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, so that's good though.
Yeah. So basically the way that I like to do it is if I do 8 songs, I like to do 4 or 5 with the looper and then or 3 or 4 with a track so that I can looper, track. You know what I mean? Because then I'm able to, while I'm playing the song with the track, I'm able to push the buttons and clear the looper out so that I'm ready to do the next song on the looper. Because once you build everything in there, now the song's over, you hit stop. Now all those loops are full. And to erase them, you have to hold the button down and wait like 3 seconds each loop to get rid of it. And so by the time you get done doing all that and then change the looper to the next, like...
hold on, ladies and gentlemen, I'm just clearing my looper. Hang on a second.
Yeah. You know what I mean? And so
it's tough.
The other thing Phil kind of keeps reminding me is that the attention span is very short, with music listeners and basically in general these days, the attention span is very short. So you have to make things happen very quickly.
Yeah.
So, boom, you come out with a song with a looper, but if you're doing something that's like building into something and there's like a chorus part right away, it's easy because people are like, they're interested. They're
in motion with it. Yeah.
Yeah. But then if you stop and then you fiddle around and then you got to try to get something going again it's hard. You have to rebuilding the momentum. So at the end of that first track, boom, you hit a track and you're onto another song and your foot's doing work and then it's getting ready for the next thing. And so that's kind of how I'm putting it together.
You just need like a rack of freaking loopers, dude. It's just like, I mean, like seriously, like, I mean,
what I'm trying to do is keep it somewhat streamlined, you know what I mean? So that it's like, hey, I can come and open for you and I can literally be on and off stage in like 35 seconds.
That's great.
I give you 2 lines. I give you, my line from my looper, which takes care of all the background vocals and all of the music. And then the other line comes out of my just lead vocal mic. So that's all the sound guy ever has to do with me is either turn up the one side or turn up the vocals. That's it, because everything else comes in mixed. So I can show up, boom, give you 2 cables. I'm ready to play. I play. I'm done. I'm off stage. No hubbub, and it's pretty quick. And so that's part of the thing that I'm trying to keep sort of consistent is that it's simple.
Do you have any shows booked?
I just did a show Friday.
How'd it go? Friday. Not in Shamokin.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't. No, it wasn't.
That's a great place to test this, by the way.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Because nobody else will know about it one way or another.
Exactly. So I did an hour of just.
That's a pretty full show, man.
Yeah, and then
after really full show.
I did my duo, a friend of mine that I play with. We do just like this acoustic duo with our loopers, and we do all kinds of crazy songs.
That's cool.
But, so I did the original thing first, my solo thing, and it went really well. It was cool to do because I kind of got a feel for that thing, like how do I manage this thing moving through these songs, and like I had to do it for an hour, so I had to pace it a little bit differently, but. The way I like to have it geared now is at 30 minutes. I'd like to just do an opening slot for 30 minutes because it's really fast. But to do it for a whole hour,
that's a lot of work, man. You must have been exhausted at the end of that thing.
Yeah. So that was the last one of those I had booked. I just had hernia surgery like 4 days ago.
Oh my God.
Suffering.
Sorry about that, man.
Yeah, it is what it is. But so right now. A doctor told me I really shouldn't be doing anything too much like that for about 6 weeks. So I'm waiting to see how I feel. I'm probably going to start doing it in about 3 weeks. I have a gig Friday with another band, but I'm just going to sit, and do that.
You know what, too? I don't know if this kind of erases the whole. If you had one person on stage with you, one other musician, that would alleviate a lot of pressure on you, and it would also now the attention is split in half.
Right. That's exactly what Phil doesn't want to do.
Why? Because he doesn't want you to have to depend on
It's
anybody.
like, there's no reason. He's like, just do everything yourself. Then every bit of attention is on you. The whole thing is you. You don't have to worry about ever anybody's personality, ever anybody's anything.
Oh, Phil's had years of touring.
I don't know if that plays into it or not, but he definitely.
Yeah. Not necessarily within Def Leppard, but I'm just saying years of experience on the road and seeing what's going on. And I'm sure like this is, and I'll tell you what, Johnny A, the reason he does it on his own is for that reason. He says, I don't have to depend on anybody, not showing up to my gig or canceling, and I don't have to deal with anybody's bullshit. Was his number one reason, actually.
And that's the thing. It was that. And Phil was like, as far as like being an opening act. So imagine, you take an opening act out that's, it's drums, it's guitar, it's bass, it's keyboards, and it's a whole stage setup of everything.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of crew that has to be involved in that situation. And there's a lot of things that can go wrong when all of that gets changed over and stuff. So when a band goes, well, we can have an opening act that's one person that does not touch a single thing that's on the rest of the stage, is set up in 30 seconds. I have two leads basically. Go out there and be able to carry an entire show as far as an opening performer goes and be off stage in 35 seconds. And there's no huge crew of people to pay to deal with it. There's no drama from any band members who might not get along, or who knows the myriad of things that can be a part of this whole band performance thing. And so if you can cover the same amount of time and have it still be a really cool show and have it just be done with one person, then that's sort of the avenue.
Yeah, I totally get it, man. Well, good luck, man. I really hope this hits for you.
Thanks, man.
The performances I heard sounded great. It was really cool listening to you play lead. The one thing that I never crossed my mind once the music started, but I have to tell you, it did cross my mind before the music started, was, am I going to be missing a guitar?
Right.
And it certainly wasn't at
awesome.
all.
Good.
It wasn't at all.
So world, that's scary, for me.
Yeah. It was great. It was sounded wonderful, man. Awesome. I really give you a lot of credit. Low points, Craig. Any low points or dark periods you've had to deal with, and how'd you get through them?
Yeah, I definitely have. I've had some really bad health issues. I was born with a condition called intestinal malrotation, and until I was in my 30s, it just bothered me all the time. I was sort of, I'd feel good sometimes, and then sometimes not so good, and but when I was in my upper 30s, all of a sudden I was just not good all the time. And I ended up in the emergency room a lot, and that. They took my gallbladder up. Long story short is they found that I had this intestinal condition, and it basically could kill me anytime because it tangles your mesenteric artery, which feeds your intestines.
Oh,
blood.
Wow.
And so that's what was happening. It would tangle, and then I would go to the emergency room, and it would untangle, and then they finally caught it on a CAT scan. So I've had a lot of surgeries to try to get through that. And at one point, I wasn't sure if, how I was going to do or how I would make it through, because I was like 100 pounds.
Holy shit.
It was awful, dude. I was in the hospital, like all just, tubes here and there. And it was talk like, well, you're probably going to need an intestinal transplant because yours just aren't really coming back to life.
Wow. That's pretty serious.
Yeah, and like when I started thinking about that, and it's like, oh my gosh, so that was a really low point where I thought I might not get through that. And when you say like, how did you get through it? I basically got to the point where I accepted whatever it was, and that made it so much easier. Like, for a while I was sick, it's like I would be mad, I would have this emotion or that, or why is this happening, everything.
Understandably.
And when I finally got to the point where I was like, I accept that this is what it is, it was like sort of freeing.
Yeah.
In other words, like this is out of my hands. There's not anything I'm going to be doing to change this. And so when I just sort of let go of that and getting out of the hospital and, sort of making those steps out of the doors going, wow, I didn't think this was going to happen. And then being able to start eating sort of regular, wow, I didn't think that was going to happen. Then starting to then back on gigs and you don't think any of this stuff can really happen because while you're in that point, it's like, there's just no way. And so I just accepted that was it. I was never going to do anything again and just whatever. And then as it starts to come back, you add the stuff on. It's like, okay, this now I can do. Now I can do this. Now I can do that. And it's like when you go, oh, I can do all these things, then that means I can do all this other stuff too.
All right. How are you feeling now?
Okay. I still have residual problems from it, and it will never go away. But I was having some problems because I had a hernia.
Yeah, I was wondering thinking about that as you said that.
Yeah, and so it was upsetting the apple cart basically with everything that was in there, and so it was kind of needed to get done. So I did that, and still recovering. Like I said, that was a few days ago. So ongoing crap, but that's part of it. And so, I always tell people, if I waited to feel good, I would never do anything.
Yeah.
It's kind of like if you live in Cleveland and you wait for the weather to be good to go outside and do anything. It's not good weather.
Yeah.
So, but, part of that though, part of the good that came out of that was it made me realize that, like, if you just keep trying, you can do it. You can figure out a way around stuff, and made me look at life different as far as like what I thought was super important. And what is always been important is it's your relationship with people.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's the only irreplaceable thing. And so that was part of the revelation of laying in a hospital bed for as much time as I spent doing that, was that the only thing I really ended up caring about was the people that were coming to see me.
Yeah.
And they were those people.
You get to know who your true friends are, man.
Yeah. And it isn't even so much like, I'm sure there's tons of people that wanted to come, but I didn't want them there. I just didn't want people around when I was like that. But the things that I would look forward to when I would wake up, it wasn't like, well, I can't wait to get out and go ride my motorcycle, or I can't wait to go, I can't this. It wasn't anything like that. It was like, I would wake up and go, I can't wait to see these people that, my wife, my brothers, and, people like that came and were there religiously, like all the time. That's what I looked forward to. And I realized that, so in the end, when there's nothing left and you don't have all those things,
right,
only thing that you really look forward to is those people that give you the comfort that you care about. And it's the same thing that you can give to them. And so through all of the things that can happen in your life, that's the one consistent thing that I learned out of that, was that all of this crap can go away, and all of it can be great, and all, whatever, it can be all these different things, but the only consistent thing will be those people that are close, that sort of matter.
I'm glad you're okay. And those are the only things that make memories anyway. Other shit, stuff you can't, nobody ever got a car and, wow, I have such fond memories of my car. That just, it's just experiences, with people and shit you did,
Yeah, exactly. And so it's, the dark periods are that I still go through them. But I think it's kind of part of what made me who I am. And it's the story, sort of what it is. And the fact that I'm still doing this, I'm still trying and still putting that amount of effort in, no matter what happens. That's what I'm going to do till I can't.
Good story, man. Thank you. Thanks for sharing it. Having gone through this, advice that you'd give to your younger self, young Craig Martini, assuming you were willing to listen. Were you a wild kid, or were you like pretty reasonably? I
followed every rule.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Except when it came to like academics in school, it lost me because I quit school in 9th grade.
Wow. So just wasn't your thing.
I couldn't. I was out playing music with the guys, and I was out all night and tired and just didn't care about it. But one thing that I would tell myself would be to be a way less patient than I was, and stop waiting for someone else, something else, something that's going to happen because you did this work. Because I was always under the impression that, like, if you just were really good at this and you were better than someone else, then you're good at it. And I thought that's what it would be, but little did I realize that that's only like a really small fraction.
Yeah, virtually. It's kind of like what we talked about earlier, like marketing your music.
Yeah.
Especially nowadays, man. If you're not the guy or the gal pushing the thing forward, it's not likely to move forward.
No, exactly. And so that's the thing. So that would be the advice. Like, instead of being.
Hang on one second. This is like clockwork. Every time I'm doing an interview, the freaking lawn maintenance guy shows up. They're going to be here. It's like washing your car, and you know it's going to rain right immediately that night. So sorry, man. This will be gone in a second.
Oh, it's no worries. No worries.
Oh, man.
But yes, I did a lot of working for everyone else's ideas,
right,
or visions, all because I didn't have the self-confidence to have my own vision to do it, because if it went wrong, then everyone would blame me.
Right.
And it's always like resistant to that whole idea. Like, okay, well, if this is fucked up, then that wasn't my idea. I did the best I could to make your idea awesome.
Yeah.
And so in a way that was like sort of like a cop-out of something. So if I had some advice for my younger self, it would be to don't do that. Just go, okay, if you got this idea, assemble some people, because your idea is just as valid as anybody else's idea,
right,
and their assembly of people, and you just have to take the responsibility of it.
That's totally incongruent with being a rule follower, though. You do realize that those two generally don't go together.
I get it.
Yeah, so it's kind of hard, because we're wired like we're wired, right?
Yep.
So it's really hard. But the good news is, man, you learn this stuff now, and you're putting it into place.
Well, that's the thing. That's the other advice. Because if you do everything right, you follow the rules, do everything that you're supposed to do, you will not succeed.
You'll succeed, but maybe not necessarily in your terms, and that's okay, because people who generally follow rules don't really, but not really occupied with their own terms. It's a whole
right. But that's the contradiction that I live, because I don't want to upset anybody's apple cart or do
right,
things that are going to be deemed as some wrong thing. But at the same time, I have this very adventurous idea nature, and I go, well, why can't you do this sort of thing? But I. I'm a middle child, so it's like the mediator.
My son's the same. My middle one's the same way. It's funny you say that, man. Yeah, he doesn't want to upset anybody. He definitely follows the rules far more than mine. You see the other one
stepping on, like, hey, don't do that because this and that. Always trying to. That's to keep.
That's pretty funny, man. Wow, it's funny you said that, because my wife and I always talk about that. Hey, what's the best decision you ever made?
Oh, you know what? To choose a career and I chose the career when I was 8, so good work, kid.
Yeah, man. That's
that
really
afforded me the opportunity to go all around the world and see other things besides just here. Because it opened my eyes to a lot of things that I don't know that I realized the gravity of.
Like, give me an example.
Poverty.
Yeah. Where'd you see that? Brazil?
Yeah, South America. Yeah. I saw a lot of poverty there. And even in some parts of Europe, where you would go and we would play at a bar where it was like, their liquor display was like less than what you had behind your bar at home.
Wow.
Say, wow, they're not doing great,
Holy smokes.
But here was the consistent thing, that in every area where it was like that, where there was poverty and stuff, the one thing that I noticed was the people were like super happy and like really just outgoing and like awesome and warm.
They probably were not on their cell phones. I would guarantee it. Yeah.
They were not on their cell phone.
No, it's just they're much more earthy.
You're in poverty, you're probably miserable and pissed because you can't have anything and you're envious or whatever. That's what I would expect for folks that have to live that way, because I would feel like this sucks.
Yeah.
But that they're like so happy that a band came to play. You know what I mean? That there was that, like when I was in Paul Gilbert's band, I can't believe that you're here to play. And the joy of what that gave them reminded me that like the things that it takes to get people that happy in this country, I don't even know what it is anymore. I have no idea. You'd have to win $1 million.
Yeah. Sometimes it seems like that.
That's what I see. Like when I would travel over out of this country, that you see that people are in general appreciate things differently. And we are in a world of disposable everything.
Man, I just read an article last week that Amazon, the 2-day Prime, it's now 1-day Prime. And
it's true, man. You order it in the morning and it's there by the evening. It's almost frightening.
And I was talking to my wife, and I'm like, man, this is not good, because, you know, I remember on our honeymoon, seeing these, they gave us these chocolates on our pillow, and she liked it. And I remember I snuck the wrapper, and then I had to go call 1-800, hoping to God I could find the company. You know, there was no, but, and then I mailed away, and it took a week to get the chocolates to her or something. But I was like, look, I'm not against progress, but I think there's a problem with this.
Push button product pop out.
Yeah, I think because people interpret that the delivery of product with the delivery of everything else. Like, oh, my fucking career, you know, by Friday I'll be at the headlining the Garden. You know, I mean, and I think what it does is, and I don't want to sound like the old man, you know, get off the grass, because I don't feel I'm like that. But I think what that does is, I think some of that is tied into the reason why the younger generation tends to be really, like, mediocre is excellent. The mediocre is the new excellent. Like, no, I don't need to do it that hard, or I don't need to work that hard, or I don't need to fucking work at all.
Yeah.
And I mean, you know, I don't know the answer. And again, I feel like a cranky old guy saying that. I'm saying it with empathy, not like,
I get it.
You know, poison or like, oh, things were better than. I'm saying it with empathy and sadness. Like, man, that's, you know, the work, the relationship of you do this and that comes out has kind of been lost a little bit.
It absolutely is lost. I agree with you, and you don't sound like a grumpy old man saying it, because it's evident in everything.
Yeah, it really seems like that.
Everything. There's just, it's like everyone's so used to, like you said, the world of like, I want this right now, and then I have it right now,
and then it happens.
Right, and so that's the instant gratification world. And so when everything is like that, then nothing actually has value, because you didn't have to actually work that hard to make it happen.
Less skin in the game, yeah, man.
You just go, oh, well, I can have this or I can't have it. It's kind of like,
right, there's less skin in the game.
It reminds me of, like, in the 80s, you know, when I was a kid growing up, and like there wasn't YouTube. Right. There wasn't any way to like go, oh, I heard this Motley Crue song. Right. And I go, oh, fuck, what is that, man? Right. And I got to wait on the radio for it to come on again. You know? And it's like, oh, what is that? And then you get lucky enough to maybe go get the record.
Or you record it when the radio comes on.
You hit the thing. And you got some commercial interruptions, but that's okay. You got this. But like, you know, you get the record and you open it up and you pull it out. And it's like, oh, awesome! It's got the lyrics in it. You know, this is kick-ass. And then there's like a picture of like the dudes, and you're like, oh, they're super cool. It's like this larger than life thing that is all there, and you build up this whole thing about
experience,
who it is, what it is. Then the fucking concert comes, right? And you're like, you've been waiting, you've been looking at this album, you've been listening to, you've been reading the lyrics. You're like, oh my God. You know, and that's all you know of them, because there's no place to go. Oh, there they are, you know, performing, because you can see that then. And so when the concert came, it was your chance to go on YouTube and like see this thing, except for the fact it was the experience of the whole thing, not just like sitting there looking at the computer. It was like showing up and seeing all the people dressed like you, like, because you like the same band and you got like stuff on. It's like, whoa, cool. You know, there's all these people that like the same stuff as I do, and so then you're there and everyone's excited, and then they finally come out, and you cannot literally believe your eyes. Like, they're real, they're moving, they're out there jamming and everything like that. So that's the thing, that the value is not there now, because like if I said, hey, here's this new song, you go, oh, cool, boom, 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 and you see it on YouTube in a second. Right. All that stuff that we just talked about building up to it is gone. It doesn't exist anymore.
Well, even going to buy the damn record.
Right. Where do you buy it?
Right. You just click it. It's boom. It's there. You know, there's I got to get up. I got to go down to the record store. I want to make sure I'm getting the right one. I only have X amount of money.
Sift through.
Yeah. Oh, wow. What about this one? And maybe I didn't. Okay. I'll put this on the back burner till next time, but I got something better. Yeah. It's just weird. I think it's important for things to progress, but I do think, in doing so, some of things are lost. Like, especially communication is really, really lost, you know, and it's weird.
Well, yeah, you know, social media has done a little bit of damage to that.
It has it has taken away any social development.
Yeah, the exact opposite. It's like friends became enemies because they learned too much about each other, and they're like, some people you're like, and the thing is like, I'm really fine with, I don't need to know like your political affiliation.
I know, I'm the same way, man. I don't ever talk about that shit. I would never spend my time on that.
Not interested in it, and the thing is that if without social media, those topics don't really ever come up.
Ever.
People are normal, and they go, well, we don't talk. But when the social media thing started happening, and people started thinking that they had a platform and some sort of a way to, disseminate their message, whatever it is that they think about, and they think that only a few people are looking at it, or like just like their friends. It's like, no, you're literally putting this out into the world, and that now everyone knows that this. And so then you start to go, when I see that person, I probably won't talk to them because it's really weird what they're saying.
Yeah, right.
That doesn't line up with the person that I think is this nice person.
Right.
Or whatever. And so I think that over time, that's part of what sort of screwed up,
Oh, totally. Absolutely. I agree with you 100%. And I'm always of the mindset, like, I would never say any of that stuff because who gives a fuck? Like what I think about, I mean, I'm just not that important, hey man, here's my eggs Benedict or something like that, like I just presume nobody gives a shit what I'm eating because I like almost don't even give a shit what I'm eating, like I don't think of it.
Right.
Yeah. It's like, it's just not a moment,
It's amazing. It's amazing. Like, oh, I just did this. I just like every little move. It's almost as if it's like a need for like fame, but there is no way to have it because you don't do anything that makes you famous. So you have to have this like, storyline.
It's perplexing. I agree with you 100% because the amount of stuff people share is really weird.
Bizarre.
Yeah. I mean, the depth of it, like, I'm going to do this, or I'm like, okay, who gives a fuck,
Do it.
Yeah. Great. Good for you. It's nice, great. I feel like sending people a bill, like, I can't get that time back that you've just stolen from me when I fucking, along those lines, what do you like most about yourself?
I'm pretty relentless. And, if I have something that I have to do, I always will do it. I will make sure it happens some way or another. Here's a good story for you.
Yeah.
I was in the hospital. I had my whole abdomen was sewn together.
I can't imagine that because your intestine, it's not like 6 inches. You got feet and feet and feet of intestines.
And at the same time, I had just had surgery to repair this ruptured sagittal band on my middle finger that tore, and my finger was left in this position. It would work anymore because I was so malnourished that the tendon just ripped out of the thing. And
holy crap!
So I had that, and I had this really great surgeon, microsurgeon, who like watched YouTube videos of me playing bass to see where the strength needed to be, and like
that is so cool, man. Now that's a guy that gives a shit.
The best.
Seriously, that's a guy that gives a shit about what he does.
He's awesome, amazing. And so he fixed it, but of course it's in a splint, and it's like I'm like this. I have this surgery. I'm laying in the hospital, and I get an email from Joe Satriani's manager, and it says, "Hey, we're doing this G4 camp. It's the first G4 camp. We're doing this thing, and Joe, likes your work with Paul and stuff, and would like to know if you, be interested in playing bass for this whole camp and everything." And here I am. I'm like this, and I'm looking at that, and my response was, "Can't wait. Really looking forward to it." Meanwhile, going, I don't know if I'm ever going to fucking play bass again because of the way that this was. But here, that's when like, what do I like about myself? The fact that I said, there wasn't even a hiccup of me going, ooh, I better tell I didn't even tell anyone that happened. I said, you know what? If the gig was like 8 months from then. And I thought, in 4 months from now, I will know whether or not I'm going to be capable of playing at that level. And if in 4 months I'm not, that still gives them 4 months to find.
Absolutely, yeah. You can call them up. Right.
I'm doing it. And so.
And what are they going to do? Say, hey, man, you shouldn't have agreed to it. They'll be just as They'll be just as like, wow, what a guy. Pride. Yeah, so cool that you know. Yeah, there's no downside to that.
So, and that was the G4 that I played bass for Mike Keneally, which was the single most difficult I've ever done.
He's like a savant, man. Not an idiot savant, like a savant. His intelligence level, whether it's guitar or just reading, anything, he is brilliant, that guy. I mean, he's literally off the charts. His brain does not think.
He's in a different world, for sure.
I think so, man.
And, you know, to learn his music was a lot. It was a lot of time signatures and crazy playing and stuff. And so I got better. I rehabbed myself.
And you learned Keneally's music.
And I learned Keneally's music, and I played it, and no one was the wiser that any of that stuff happened.
That's so cool, man.
And so that's one of the things where it's like, you know what? I know I can count on myself. I will show up. I will do the work, and I won't be a puss.
Yeah.
I'm going to just do it. And so, yeah, that would be my best.
Congratulations. I interviewed Mike, and he's also one of the nicest people around me. He's just a very nice, warm guy. Really cool.
Great guy.
Hey, 3 more questions. You mentioned that your wife, how long have you been married?
So we've only been married since October.
Dude, congratulations.
Thank you. But I have known Kim since I was in 7th grade.
Oh, my God.
Yep. We were friends forever. You know, we had each separate relationships. I was married before.
You need a test marriage, I say. Everybody needs.
And that didn't work. And
somebody got really upset when I said that. Someone sent me like something on YouTube that was really fucked up that you said you need a test marriage. I'm like, okay, you might be right.
Well, you got to look at it however you got to look at it. Whatever gets you through the night.
Yeah, I mean, you know that I had a test marriage, so that's fine.
You know what? That's the thing. And so, you know, we both had our separate lives and stuff, but we always remained friends over the years. And we ended up seeing each other sometime after I'd been divorced from my first wife, like a couple of years after that. And we started hanging out, and she was single, I was single. And once we hung out like the first time, it was like, this is really awesome because we know all of the same, we're all like friends way back. And then like, she's super attractive and I always liked her anyway. And so it's just like worked out, and we've been together for 14 years now.
Wow. So that's very nice, man. Good story. Congratulations.
Thank you. And so
how come you got married? Nobody gets married anymore.
Well, you know, she proved the sickness and health thing for me like pretty vehemently without having to be married to me. Didn't go anywhere, stuck through all that horse shit. And besides that, there's no person I like to spend more time with. You know, nice. It's easy. You know, there's no thing to like overcome ever. We're just always the same because we've known each other literally since we were kids. That's
really nice, man. Congratulations to both of you guys. That's really cool. Hope you have another 14 more years of
well, we have a lot of fun together, and that's really the main thing.
Yeah.
You know, is that we don't have children. Neither of us ever had the desire to do it. I actually at one point thought I might want to have kids, but I realized that being an absentee father was not what I wanted to do.
Sure.
I wanted and I really, really wanted to play bass and be out on the road and tour and stuff. That was something that I always wanted to do way first and foremost before ever like raising a family. And you know, my wife is completely on board with that. She likes to have the freedom of like that we can come and go. We don't even have a pet anymore. Our dog died like a few years ago, and we haven't gotten a pet because things like Def Leppard's honeymoon happened. Yeah. It was like they called me and I had to be somewhere in 6 hours.
Yeah.
She could go, boom, no obligations, just take off. And so that's why we never had any kids. And
good for you. I think more people should think about that kids thing before they have them, because I got 3 and it's a fuck ton of work. And I mean, they're older now, so it's great, but
I can imagine
it's been a lot of work.
You know, and the thing is, though, is that I know myself, and that there's no possible way that fatherhood would have gone to the wayside. Everything else would have.
Right.
And I know for a fact I would have had some deep-seated resentment sometime later on in my life that I didn't go and follow my dreams of being a musician.
Yeah.
doing that and got some stay-at-home job because I was raising a family, because there's no way that I would have children and not be at home.
Yeah, I understand that. I give you a lot of credit, Craig. That's a tough decision, and it's a good decision that you made, and you went with what your heart was, and where the pain of greater regret. So
right.
You,
so, and I have nephews and nieces and all that, so I got plenty of younger kid support. I just don't, I'm not in control of anybody.
Which is liberating, trust me. You're not in control of them anyway, trust me. That's a fallacy. Whoever told you that.
I think you may be right about that.
You have any hobbies or interests outside of music?
Yep, I fish a lot.
Freshwater or freshwater, probably, right?
Yeah, freshwater because I'm in Ohio.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, and I have ever since I was a kid.
I love fishing, man. What do you fish for out there?
Mostly walleyes.
Yeah.
I live 10 minutes from Lake Erie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so we get trout, steelhead trout coming in the fall and throughout the winter time. So that's a lot of fun. They come into the river.
Cool.
Yeah, and then we have some inland lakes around that I have like a small boat, 12-foot aluminum boat that I go and, I like to fish for the walleyes and stuff in those lakes because they're not contaminated. They're drinking water. Like the one lake you can have only electric motors in it because it's drinking water for a city, so
that's amazing.
You're catching fish out of drinking water.
You mean electric motors like the little prop motors? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So you can get around a little bit.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, so no gasoline in it. And so I like to do that. I like to sort of put the fish in the freezer and then get,
Yeah.
And we eat probably 2-3 meals a week off of stuff that I catch around.
Wow, man, that's that's super healthy. What do you catch walleye with?
All kinds of different stuff. Mainly, we either troll with crankbaits, lures, or worm harnesses, which is like a spinner. I tie these things. It's on a long lead. You put 2 hooks. They're like little egg hooks. And then you put some beads and then some spinners. I usually put 2 spinners in front of it, and then you tie that and you have a weight in front of it.
That's like an ancient, like a local secret or something. It sounds
so
like.
When you flip that thing out there, depending on how deep the water is, that's how much weight you'll put on there.
Okay.
Boat to drift. And so once you start to drift and the weight is at the right level, the walleyes tend to suspend in the summertime. So if you can say you're in 30 feet of water, the walleyes will be somewhere usually at about 20 foot, 18 to 20 foot.
Oh, that's a deep lake, 30. We don't have those deep lakes here.
There. And then your lure, your harness that you're drifting over the top, if they're at 18 foot, you want your harness to be at like 16 foot so that it drifts over the top of them because they look up.
Yeah, and then they hit it.
Boom, they'll go right by and they'll never see it.
That's cool, man. I love fishing. It's very relaxing. It's so relaxing.
Yeah, I'm a little less than a relaxed fisherman. Of course, I've got to figure it out. I've got electronics and everything. I love the ice.
Oh, yeah. Those are cool.
Ice fishing is probably one of my favorite things.
I've never done that.
I ride a motorcycle. I've had forever, and that's the other hobby I have. But that's pretty much it. Music and fishing are the 2 main things that I spend my time on.
Yeah, fishing's really relaxing. I love that.
It's kind of a good way to reconnect. I like to camp too. I just don't have much time for it.
Yeah, I couldn't do that camping, man. When you grow up in the Bronx, it's just such a foreign thing. It seems outdoors shit like that. I'd be like, man, there's bugs and shit crawling.
Oh, I love it.
Last question, man. Craig, what's been the biggest change in your personality over the last 10 years, and how much of that has been intentional and how much has just been a natural part of aging? And man, I want to thank you very much. I really appreciate everything you said. I'm glad your health is doing better, and thanks for being so open, man.
Much appreciated, definitely. What's changed? I would say I've gotten a lot more self-confidence than I ever had.
That's awesome.
And that is definitely relates to the company that I've been able to keep over the years. Because when you have people around that are like your heroes that you grew up like, and then you're able to do something that you're accepted into their world that you've looked up to.
Sure.
And all these guys have been accepted into their world. I've toured with them and played and recorded and done everything like that. So that gave me a certain sense of, I know what I can bring to the table of any situation musically that comes along, regardless of what it is. And so the confidence of knowing that exists gives my personality a little bit more confidence because I know that I'm able to do things that, are something that's maybe a little bit different than somebody else can do.
Very cool, man. Let me tell people where to find your stuff. Also, if someone's interested in connecting with you to do some tracks for them or to play bass for them, how do you want them to get a hold of you?
You know what? Through MySpace,
and you could send an 8-track tape.
What's that other one? 8-track version. Yeah. See, I'm still in that world. It's awful.
And he'll record on 2-inch tape and send it to you.
See, now that actually excites me. I like 2-inch tape. Really? Somebody wants to do that?
Facebook? If people
just get a hold of me through Facebook. Either one of the pages. I have like the personal page and then the fan page or whatever. But I'm just not good at the fan page thing yet. So I still have.
Well, we're going to get you some fans right now. So here, I want everybody to check out. It's Craig Martini, Martini. And first of all, check out Craig's 2 new singles on Spotify. He did a great job with it, and I'm looking forward to the next 2 dropping. The singles are called Whoa, WHOA, and the second track is called Pain, and in brackets it's Here Comes the Rain. So check those out on Spotify. You could also friend and find and like Craig on Facebook, Craig Martini. And if you are looking to work with Craig to do tracks or to hire him to play bass, also message him on one of his Facebook pages. And man, I look forward to hearing about when you're going on tour. Let me know when, because I'll put an announcement out. Man, that'll be really cool.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Thank you so much for having me on. It's really been good.
Oh, no, thank you. Likewise, I appreciate you coming on. Thanks for your stories. I know I'm really happy your health is doing good. Congratulations with that. And good luck. That's really a nice story with your wife, man. That's really cool.
Oh, yeah. Awesome.
I have next week, like a week and a half, I'll be married, 25 years with my wife. And I cannot believe, and I feel the same way. We get along great. She's the best person. I want to hang out with her first and anybody else. I don't know how that happened. I'm like extremely
Isn't that
lucky.
Something like you like, there's
really
like
nutty.
All of a sudden there's this person that like when something happens, that's you. Oh, I want to tell my wife about it. It's like it's weird because I'm not normally like that, but she's always the person that you want to go to and tell about the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it is. Yeah.
Although I will give her something, 25 years. So it's like, what's it, 7-1 in dog years? So she's really been together with me like 175 years. So I will give her the credit where credit's due. All right, brother. Thanks very much for everything, Craig. I look forward to speaking to you again.
Thanks so much.
You're welcome. Everybody, thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please share it on your social media pages. We appreciate your support. Thanks a bunch to Craig Martini for spending time with us. Please check out and support Craig's music. I really want you to do that. Spotify. The songs are Whoa, WHOA, and the other song is Pain, and his last name is Martini, Martini, and his first name is Craig. You better not forget that one. Make sure you go to everyonelovesguitar.com, sign up to get on our newsletter list so you and I can connect, and most important, remember that happiness is a choice, so choose wisely. Be nice, go play your guitar or your bass, and have fun. Till next time, peace and love, everybody. Thanks for listening, and I'm out.